Hi, I'm Jennifer Branch. When I think about reflections, I think about boats in water, and there is no prettier place to paint boats in water than Southwest Harbor, Maine. These boats seem to be sitting on a beautiful mirror. Let's paint. I'm having fun with twin rocker paper. This is an 8 by 18 size, which is just gorgeous for landscapes. A little bit different. I'm using an Isabey Squirrel Mop number 6, so a nice medium size, because it's not a huge painting. It's just elongated. And I'm starting with a couple colors mixed. In this series, I've been mixing colors for some reason. I'm not sure why, but you have to do what the paintings tell you to, right? So I'm going to be using a couple colors, the Cobalt Violet and a little bit of the Nickel Azo Yellow and some of the Cobalt Blue dropped in. And this one's Ultramarine Blue. Now this looks like it's pretty dark, but you'll notice as we get later in the painting, it gets really dark. This is a nice color that seems adequate, but it just doesn't quite do it. It doesn't make everything pop, and I want the reflections to glow. This is a good first layer. Remember, you always build up to darks in watercolor because it feels great to put that really heavy brush stroke on with the really saturated colors, but it's going to make it look heavy, and what I'm wanting them to do is float on the water. So notice I'm using a lot of horizontal lines. I'm blocking out some areas here with a wax crayon. Very simple. That way I have those bright white highlights on the boats. You're wanting to use a lot of horizontal strokes. Everything is coming directly towards you. Remember all those reflections, 90 degrees directly towards the viewer. So they're not going to blur off to either side like you might feel if there's a shadow on the water, or you'll see some overlapping when it's something huge like the sky. But these are small boats, right? They're just little dinghies. So you're going to see them directly below the objects that are being reflected. This is a mirrored surface. The reflections, they're very tightly controlled. You don't want to dash colors everywhere. You want the reflections right where they're supposed to be because it's a mirror. And that's why we started with this one, because it's actually the easiest to do. Now the colors are really interesting. The colors that you see from above are not the same colors that are necessarily reflected from below, because you're seeing it's a curved object and you're seeing from the top of an object. Think of a ball. The classic ball, you might see a white highlight on the top of the ball, but there's shadow underneath it. Well, this is a little different because light's reflecting too, so it gets very interesting. You want to take a look at what's there. Quinacridone Rust. I've been having some fun with this one. It's a very transparent sort of burnt sienna substitute. I think it's going to be added to my permanent palette, but we'll see. You always have to try new things, and sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. Now I'm continuing to just draw those lines vertically down. Nickel Azo Yellow, because I want that to glow. Beautiful wood, gorgeous sunlight. The colors in this one are very subtle, which is probably why I did so much mixing on this one. Usually I don't do as many subtle colors in paintings for video because frankly it doesn't show up quite as well as it does in real life. Alright, so we've got some Cad Red and just very bright, cheery colors. This is more of a plastic boat or, fiberglass boat, but I'm making it wood with white painted wood, adding a couple extra little lines in there for shadows because the rest are beautiful wood. Southwest Harbor is known for its wooden boats. It's got to be wooden. Now you can see already how I'm definitely going to have to darken the water, or the glowing white reflections, they don't show up. They're not quite as luminous. It looked really luminous to start, but now that it's dried and I'm starting to get the boats in there, it's dulling it down, and I want luminous, just luminous water mirror. Notice just putting the brush strokes on in the directions of the object that you're painting, like the horizontal brush strokes. I thought you might like a different angle right here. Horizontal brush strokes makes all the difference for delineating the surface of an object. It tells you that it's a smooth mirror. Dyke Brown is another that I've been playing around with that I'm really liking. I want you to notice that every so often I creep up on my brush's ferrule, to get that tiny little detail, but mostly I'm way back there on a brush. And I wanted you to really see that, and you can see that better from this angle than something else. This kind of goes from a wet on dry to a dry brush, and it's a little bit of a tricky stroke because I want the white highlights in there, and while the twin rocker paper is rough, it's not extremely rough like an Arches rough. It's a nice happy medium. So you have to be very careful when you're doing dry brush on it. I have changed to the Isabey round with the sharper point because I'm starting a little bit more detail. A mop isn't going to work for that kind of detail. A mop is for big, sloppy, exciting strokes. I love the bright red dinghy. It's perfect. So to get that really bright, there really is nothing other than a cad red. To make an opaque color like cad red turn out a little bit transparent, put it on in the thin layers, and that will do what you want. If you put it on very heavy, it's going to be opaque. Now don't forget about all the reflected light from the water on the boats and vice versa. You're not going to get those wonderful little ripple lines like you do sometimes at the ocean, because this is very still water. I know it's the ocean and a harbor, but this day it was very, very still. So you don't get the intricate little reflections, you get a smooth mirror. I have to tell you, I'm very excited about this Reflections series. There's just a few little tips and you've got it. Once you know it, it all seems very easy, but I know from experience that it is a struggle when you're learning. I've made all these mistakes. Notice that when I'm painting the reflection of the red boat, I am painting it a little bit duller. I'm mixing a little bit more brown with it, and I'm not the top part of it where the light is, and I will put more shadows, is the knock your socks off red. The reflection, it's subdued. It's still extremely bright, but with the browns on there, it's very subdued in comparison. Now, you can still see the white boat reflections, they're getting lost. In the red one, it's a little harsh now, isn't it? Some more cad red. Use a color in one place, use it at least 2 other places. Not adjoining. Not connecting. Honestly, the water on this, it was almost like a fabric sheet or something. Just smooth, very, very graduated ripples. Some deep shadows. You can't really see that side. Some nice darks, Ultramarine Blue and Van Dyke Brown mixed together with a couple little dashes of everything else that we've used. Tiny little lines, just hit and miss. Just enough because I don't care about the dog. I want the dot just enough to show it's a dog, and that is it. The dock is extremely boring compared to the boats and the reflections. And that shadow underneath that you can see better on the reflection than you can on the actual object. The Cobalt Violet's a really good color for very subtle changes like that. I wouldn't try to do anything extremely dark with it, but subtlety, it's all about it. Keep looking at what's actually there. And always feel free to shift the colors and shift the boats and move everything around a little. That's the whole point of being an artist, right? You're distilling the essence of what you see. Now, I've added a bright wash of the Ultramarine Blue, and I'm going over it with some Cobalt Violet to dull it down a little bit. Remember, red will dull down something like bright blue. Dulls down, purples dull down pretty much everything. And you see how that makes a very big difference. Now the shadow, so that dark ultramarine blue is repeated somewhere, a little bit more subtly, but it's still a repeat. Now the tricky part is getting something like dashes of the nickel Azo Yellow so you can see it's the gray brown wood without making it green. Keep a light hand. Proceed with caution. Now notice I'm doing it on the edge because if you look at shadows, always one edge is going to be warmer or cooler than the other. Either the inside is cooler or the outside is cooler, and one side of the shadow is warmer or cooler. So that's a good way when you're not wanting to produce green from a gold and blue to do it. You pay attention to the subtle little differences and they help you. Now I'm just going to dash a couple lines in here. I want the impression that there's some other boats back there. You know, it's not just these 4 dinghies by the water, or it's a boat yard. There's a lot of action going on. Just some movement and some ideas about boats back there. It's really hard to do it subtly and just show enough, barely enough on things like that. It's so easy. Painting in great detail is so much easier than painting an impression of something, because the impression you have to show just the right amount. If you show too much, it doesn't work, because then it's like you're trying to do detailed painting, but it failed because it isn't one or the other. So start with too little, move up very slowly to just the right amount. got a golden glow there. That light reflecting on the white boat. Notice how all of the reflections are duller than the actual objects. In the areas, there are a few areas that the shadows might be darker on the reflections, but that's because we can't see the actual objects from that angle, because the mirror of the water has a slightly different angle than we do. The nice thing about using a highly sized paper is you can pull up color very easily. This is just one of our favorite, my husband and I's favorite places in the entire world. We love going and sitting and watching the boats from here, and maybe drinking a cup of coffee or a blueberry scone. It's perfect. So, of course, he claimed this painting. I'm going to hang it over my mantle. So these golden lights on the wood. I've seen some of the most beautiful boats docked here, just in, it's just amazing what you can see just sitting for a while. I highly recommend going to Southwest Harbor or Mansat and just sitting and painting all day long, because you never know what gorgeous boats you'll see. All right, so very subtle detail, just enough. Make sure the reflections make sense. A few more lines. Pulling out a little bit of light from in there. I sign it, and I am done. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and for more information, please visit my website, paintingwatercolor.com. If you like it, please subscribe. I do as many other videos as I can, and there's 2 great ones coming up. Happy painting!